So I have learned when dealing with conflict with coworkers that it's always best to keep your cool, be calm about everything, and just really do your job, but also work out whatever conflict that you do have with your coworkers because that's not a healthy work environment. So, I have actually had a conflict with a coworker at an old job that I had. She didn't like how I did certain things because it wasn't the same way that she did them. So the way I handled it was that I just, I guess before I handled it, um I noticed that she would treat me differently than she was treating everyone else. I would come in before I would even clock into work. I would come in, say hi to my coworkers, and out of nowhere, I noticed that she would come up and ask me why I was talking or why I still had my things in my hand. And before I could even clock in, she would be telling me I needed to do this or I needed to do that, or there would be things that I felt that I would do the same as other people, and she would still be mad that I was doing them a certain way. So, the only way that I truly felt that I could handle this situation was to go to my manager and simply tell her how I felt that I was being treated, and what I have noticed in the work environment and how I was being treated by her. I would try to leave other people out of it, even though they would come to me and tell me they had the same issues, whatever. I would try and leave other people out of it just because that's not my business. And if they wanted to talk to the manager about how the supervisor was treating them, they could. And I feel like this is how most things should be handled when it comes to a conflict with a coworker or a conflict with basically anybody in the dental office. I really think that you should always go through your manager or supervisor before you try and go through another coworker or go about it with that person yourself. I would say to never try and handle it by yourself, just because it's probably not going to get anywhere. And then if you can go through a manager and handle it, I think that would be a lot easier, just because it would be much less he said, she said, and more of let's figure out a way to get past the conflicts and figure out what is the issue here. I also had another conflict at a different job, much less with someone that had an issue with me, and more so someone I felt like when they were told to do something, it was like, okay, I'll do it. And then I would end up doing it just because it wasn't done. Not necessarily because she asked me to, but just because it wasn't getting done, and other people were still getting in trouble for it. And so I went and talked to the manager, and just speaking how I felt, how I saw things being handled, and how I felt that things were being taken care of as far as tasks. And so she did ask me, and then she also asked another person just to get clarification on what was going on. And when it turned out that it was true, she had this girl, she had a little meeting with her and asked her what the issue was and why things weren't getting done, why she wasn't doing things. And so ultimately it ended in us having to have a end of the day list, and she had us initial what we did and then the date, and basically a very detailed list about what needed to be done by the end of the day, who did it, and that was that. And it solved a lot of the issues that we did have in the office. So I feel like whenever you have a problem with someone, getting an attitude or being rude or acting a certain way, that or talking about them to somebody else who is not your manager or your supervisor is not how to get things done. I just feel like the best way to resolve coworker conflicts is, or any conflict in the office, would be to go through your supervisor always or your manager and just try to be civil. You don't always have to like everybody that you work with, and you are not always going to like everybody you work with. But as far as getting along, I feel like you should try to get along for the most part, and then working together. I feel, as far as this job goes, a lot of us are women, and so we do tend to have more attitudes, or there's more drama. So I feel like as far as that goes, there is a better way to solve conflicts other than drama or yelling at each other or getting in an argument. So whenever there is a conflict, I feel that it is best to bring it to someone who's higher than you, bring it to their attention, ask them how they can help, or ask them how to solve something if they think that it should just be solved between the coworkers and they have no way of solving it for you and they tell you just to figure it out. I think that it's always best to be the bigger person. Never treat anyone like they're less than you, and you guys are at the end of the day there to do the same job. You're there to get the same things done. Chances are you all want to go home at the same time, and I just feel like solving conflicts in the office is always easiest when maybe have a sit-down meeting with your manager, or email your manager, or just kind of clue your manager in on what's going on. They can get the details on both sides of the story, because there's always two sides to a story, rather than going around he said, she said. So I think that pulling a manager in or a supervisor in is the best way to go when you are resolving work conflicts. And I don't think they should ever try to be resolved between two people, and I think that it is always best to solve them while a manager or supervisor is around.